Perfect. I know that people are still trickling in, but we'll take this time to review today's guidelines for our session, right? So um, please keep your camera off. These panels are being recorded, so we want to make sure that our panelists are front and center and there are no distractions. Um, Also, microphones will be disabled during the panel session. There may be time later in this session during Q&A for you to come off of mute and ask a question out loud. But most importantly, you can use the chat feature in these meetings to communicate with panelists throughout the session. Um, Additionally, when we get to our Q&A section, that's the best place to post questions. And just a fair reminder, the session is being recorded. We're going to kick it right off, and I'm going to have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Pamela Joly and Dave W. Christopher Sr., who are going to talk to us today about music and technology. Kicking it over to you.
So good morning. Good morning. My name is, as the gentleman just said, or Josh just said, I am Dave Christopher Sr., Executive Director and founder of AMPT. And Dr. Joly, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning. I'm Dr. Pamela Joly, and I'm CEO of Torch Enterprises.
Cool. So we have the amazing task and honor of talking about music and technology. And I know I love both. I know that you love both. So just as a sort of to set the tone for the conversation, AMPT started out as a music program in 2014, founded in 2014 as a music program for young people ages 8 to 18 years old or high school seniors, as a safe and productive place for them to be. That kind of evolved into a family learning program where we work with the families, from that into a technology workforce development program, and now most recently a Russell Tech Business Incubator, which is where Dr. Joly and I we've known each other for many, many years. And so, but we've finally got to work like as hand in hand, if you will, finally. Yeah. You know, a lot of light touch, you know, early on, but like every week I see Dr. Joly.
Yes. So I'm grateful for it too.
We are. So in the Russell Technology Business Incubator. So Dr. Joly, how do we start this conversation when we talk about music and technology?
Yeah. So, you know, one of the things that I love about people like ourselves in this work is that there are more similarities than there are differences. Mm-hmm. And so when we think about, as we were talking about these opportunities that are coming up in our community now, that definitely leverage technology, and how everyone talks about this new technological industrial age, if you will. But one of the biggest watch outs for this industrial age, technological age, is a widening of the wealth gap. Mm-hmm. And so when we think about the role of music and how music generates so much wealth for so many people, I think about the work that you do in untapping that genius, that creativity. And so I think we should start there. I think we should start at where the opportunities pose for individuals who are either early stage or mm-hmm. companies that are looking to see how they can embrace this opportunity.
Yeah, and I'll add to that I think, you know, the work that we're doing that we started doing in music and then obviously technology as a part of that in music production and music, creating music and all those things that we do. One of the things about that we always did with it from the very beginning with the music program, I used to tell people, and I still do tell people this is the only place that you can come where a young person can walk through the front door with an idea and walk out the back door with a product. Now, the crazy thing about that is sort of, for me, the way God works is that then went from those kids and that idea that you walk through the front door with an idea, walk out the back door with a product. We were blessed to like be able to bring that all the way to the families of those kids and adults in the communities, underserved, underrepresented communities, and provide that same thing in the way of technology and workforce development. And so, you know, it was sort of birthed, if you will, with the idea that we want to just keep kids safe, and then developed into this thing that was really the answer to the community problem that we had in terms of, like you talked about, generational wealth. And I'd love for you to talk more about that and how we've sort of ingrained that in the work that we're doing with the Russell Technology Business Incubator.
No, definitely. And I think what I love about what you're doing is, I mean, you're really helping them build a product to enter into a marketplace, right? Really put a business model around the work that we love to do. And so my research is centered around Black wealth and the way that African Americans in particular pursue wealth, if you will. What I found is it takes 3 generations to build legacy wealth and only 1 generation to lose it. And that first generation creates that foundation. But similar to what that first generation has to do, everybody has to create a life with increasing levels of income. And so identifying ways in which we can participate in that first necessary step towards wealth is so critical. The next step is to build that sustainable lifestyle. And so that can pass on beyond retirement. And so when I think about what AMPT is doing, and specifically the RTBI is doing, you're helping people come in with an idea and leave with a product, but you're also at the center, the Institute, helping people come in with an idea and leave with a business that creates an economy. And that economy can do business with both the consumer and larger businesses. So you're building a whole, what I call closed loop economic circle to really build wealth.
Because one of the things I've said is just sort of a couple of things I say that kind of come to mind always when we talk about our programs, and the one is building the community from within. And when we look at like all the ways we've done it before, when we brought in like you had these training classes, and then you gave somebody some training, and then you send them out on their way. And the funny thing about that was, and think about how this does not make sense, is I teach you how to write a business plan. I tell you how to get your LLC. I do all those things, and I send you on your way without the understanding that you don't have access to capital, you don't have access to those resources like accounting and all those things you need, and expect that something will change. And the fact is, it won't, and it hasn't until now with what we're doing. And you think, like, and again, I go back to you guys will hear this young lady, Nichelle Barber. Nichelle, I'm sorry.
Nichelle Noble.
Nichelle Noble later today. She's one of our students. This young lady is 12 years old, and she's working on it. She's finishing up her album, and we're about to start promoting that album and doing some other things with, to get her out there and working. And so that's actually a business. And so that was the business that we did with those kids. But when I talked about this ecosystem that we created, and when we talk about building the community from within, when we looked at it, we said, okay, first let's take care of the kids. Because when you talk about social determinants of health, a parent that's out there struggling, trying to make it work, working 2 and 3 jobs, trying to take care of their kids and make sure the kids have what they need. If we take care of those kids and we get those kids stable and settled and doing good in school and getting good grades, that takes that mental pressure off of that parent. So that was the first step. Then we realized, and we sort of discovered this in 2015, after 2015, 2016, that, and this actually came from something that Sharon Darling from the National Center for Families Learning said to me in an orientation. She said, Dave, there's no such thing as well, it felt like she was talking to the group, but I felt like she was saying it to me. So she said, Dave, there's no such thing as a child in poverty that doesn't live with a parent in poverty, right? And so when I thought about that, it's like our kids are going into homes where the parents are struggling. And that's when our technology workforce development piece came along, and we started training Blacks and other underserved folks in underserved communities in technology, because I know, coming from poverty myself, that when I learned technology, when I learned coding, when I learned how to work in technology, I then could earn my own living wage. My father said, and I know you've got a story about your father.
I'm about to say the way forward is back through. So that's one of the commonalities that we have, where both of our fathers started in technology.
Right. Yeah. And so like he said to me, if nobody will hire you, hire yourself. And so and I realized at 12 years old, didn't have any idea what that meant, and like really understood how much that led my life from that time forward. Because of what I realized at some point, and probably just most recently, I've never in my entire life worried about a job. Because I always knew that I could do it. And so when we came up with this idea for the Music Academy, and then that Family Learning Program and the Workforce Development Program, was that it was about providing resources to people that we knew that could do what they needed to do if they had those resources. And so you have the children, then you have the families with living wage jobs, and now in that same community you have companies that are struggling, Black and Latinx businesses that are struggling, trying to survive because the people in that community can't afford the product, et cetera, and we go from there.
So we all have to elevate our standard of business. And let's talk about some ways in which they can get started. So I'm not quite sure about the many different people. I'm so excited about this conference. I heard there's upwards of 1,000 people that show up at this conference. So I congratulate the designers of this conference. But whether you are a business owner, whether you're someone entering in the marketplace, or whether you're just saying, wait a minute, how do I get involved in this? Let's talk about ways in which they can get started. And so I see two segments. You've got individuals and you have companies, and there's opportunities for both, and you present opportunities for both. But let's talk about that. What would we say it would be the first step?
So for individuals, the first step would be to dial the number, to like come and check out the program and find out what it is, and figure out what it is you want to do, and then come to us for us to help you do that. Be that technology training and workforce development piece, or that business piece. Or if you have young people that you want to have, want some help with, then that's sort of the entry into as far as individuals. But then when you talk about businesses, and I spoke about this actually at the Microsoft press conference about 2 years ago, was that the organizations, the individuals, the corporations, your responsibility is to provide those opportunities for the folks that we're training and getting ready. If you want a more diverse workforce, if you want things to be, as you hear, like all things equal, right? If you want to begin to make all things equal, then you have to provide that opportunity. But we have a responsibility too. And our responsibility is to be prepared for that opportunity. And that's what, so I'll say this, and I think on both sides it's happening, because I know Microsoft and Future of Work, Future of Lou, Ben Reno Weber, all those folks are jumping in and helping and doing their part. And I'm sure they can agree that we are doing our part in terms of the training. Humana and Brown-Forman and Yum Brands and all those companies are jumping in. So it's kind of both ways.
So as I hear you, and I want the audience to really listen, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of opportunities for you to participate in this growth and change that is happening in our communities and in this industry. And in addition to this growth and change that's happening, there are ways in which companies can also engage those who are going a little further down the road. And so one of the myths I want to dispel, because, I work across the country, and sometimes when we talk about wealth, and then the first thing you have to hear is get a job and work, some people don't want to understand, well, wait a minute, I want to talk about wealth. What I want you to understand is that the first key to wealth is increasing levels of income. And so figuring out work, that opportunity. So having work that you love is an opportunity to skill build. And once you skill build, that's when you have increasing opportunities to do things that you may not even have thought of, because now you know how to participate in an industry as vast as this.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing, is that so I think when we look at the opportunities, or what corporations and foundations and folks can do, is provide those internships, paid internships, and living wage jobs. One of the conversations we had, you and I had at one point, was about how, it's a dangerous thing, or it's a not so smart thing or good thing to do for you to take advantage of someone that does. So like, let me back up for a little bit. The majority of the folks that go through our program are folks that do not have a college degree, in some cases don't have a high school diploma, they may have a GED, et cetera, right? And the reason those folks are so close to my heart, because I didn't have a college degree till I was 40 years old. I was working in technology long before that, and actually owned my own company before that. And so the reason I make that point is that the requirements to do the job are not that degree. That degree is a really great thing, and we want people to do it. And we're working with JCTC and Bellarmine and other schools to try to make sure that people can, once they start to earn a living wage and start to have that ability to then go get that college degree. So another thing I want to point out, with as far as like how can corporations and folks help, is remove those, I'm going to say, unnecessary barriers to the opportunities that are out there. The reason that there's only 7.6, and I tell people this all the time, I'm not in technology because I'm a genius. I'm in technology because I was exposed to it. It was something I enjoyed, and I do it. Only 7.6% of technology jobs are held by Blacks. And that's a ridiculous number when you look at the population in the country. I think it's around like 18-20% or whatever. So, but the number is way too low. And it's not because we can't, it's because we don't have the opportunity, and we have to also believe that we can.
But there's also pathways. And so my father came out of the Navy, got a couple certifications in technology, and became one of the first Black programmers in his industry. He stayed there for 35 years. I learned how to type my name before I learned how to write it. And so my father had an associate's degree, and literally he invested in my education. So while I do have 4 degrees, he kept saying that it's not knowledge, it's applied knowledge, right? So the ability to apply knowledge. And in my research, what I found is, listen, we're all geniuses. We just have different learning styles. And so in technology, there's an opportunity for you to get certifications, for you to build relationship. But I think when I hear you, Dave, what you're also saying about companies is to find pathways to not miss out on the underutilized intellectual property in communities of color, because there's so much missed opportunity by not engaging us where we are. And I know my father unlocked his genius code, and I'm grateful for that. And I know that anyone can when engaged in the right way. So whether you are someone who is a genius that needs to be unlocked, or a company that is looking for a really wonderful workforce base, I encourage you to start thinking about the way forward is back through. There were amazing programs all across this country that really gave Black people opportunities that degrees would not at the time. Let's look at that again, and let's see how we can take that to another level. So Dave, when I think about ways to get started, we talked about that, but this legacy of passing on, because that's really where we connect, right? I remember you often say that was one of the first things you remembered when we first met.
Yep.
How it takes 3 generations to build, only 1 to lose, but when 4 generations stay together, the wealth wheel begins to turn. And so let's cast a vision for people, regardless of which generation they are, of what's possible in the industry that we are facing these opportunities in right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's key. And again, like you said, I mean, and it was funny because, like I said, we've known each other for quite a while, for quite a long time. And the very first thing that I remember you saying was it takes 3 generations to build wealth and only 1 to tear it down. And so one of the things we talked about in the incubator, when it was interesting when we were able to get you to partner with us on this, and we have your book, The Narrow Road 2.0. And I still do. I say every time a founder comes and picks up that book, I said, I want you to have this book because I know you're going to be wealthy. I just want you to be able to keep it. And
Yes.
and so when we talk about even generational, like the business legacy, right? The story that always throws me is like I watch, and this will date me, of course, but I watched a show called The Untouchables. I don't know if anybody Untouchables with Elliot Ness, and this show came out in the 40s, the 1940s. I remember watching an episode of Elliot Ness or The Untouchables, and they mentioned J.P. Morgan Chase in that episode, and I thought to myself, how crazy is that? That in the 1940s, J.P. Morgan Chase was so significant that they were mentioned in this show, right? And here we are in 2021, and J.P. Morgan Chase is still around, still thriving, doing well. That's legacy.
That is like,
And think about all of the people that benefited from that legacy. And so when we talk about the Black and brown community and legacy and what legacy, when we look at the wealth gap is what it is because of the lack of legacy, right? That we haven't been able to pass on all of the things that we need to have, and some of those things obviously were taken from us, and we won't get into that, but we know what that story is.
another way though, Dave, is that there is a legacy of wealth in the African American community. It may not show up in the same ways as a Rockefeller or a JP Morgan Chase legacy, but we do have wealth, and we are wealth. One of the things that I found out in my research is that, listen, African Americans are the only people in America who were first capital before they ever made capital. They came over here on the balance sheet as an asset. And so we have to recognize that wealth is more than money, that it's so much more, because what we're talking about in terms of artificial intelligence, and we're talking about AI and all these new innovations, it's intellectual property, right? It's intellectual equity, and that we are filled with that as well. And that's really what you tap into, where people bring that to the table and you help them put a business model around it and take it to the next level.
No, I agree. And when I look at like Old Walnut Street and in Oklahoma and places like that, we've always been able to do it. We've always been able to get stuff done. it was all of that systematic racism and all the things that happened that destroyed it when we built it, and and then we rebuilt it.
And still we persevered. Yes,
Right,
yes.
right. And so the point that I guess that I'm making that is that we have to make sure that as we create new businesses and new opportunities for continued legacy, that we make sure that we bring in that piece because I think we talked about this, and I remember, and you have to help me remember what you were saying about this was that we created businesses not necessarily from a business school, but from a need to create businesses to survive. And so we took what we had and used that. So I don't know if you remember that conversation.
Yeah, so many of our businesses solve problems for us. And because we were connected and had the same problems, those of us who were able to put a business model around that work, we all participated in it because it filled a need. So a lot of our businesses were need-based businesses, not luxury businesses. And so there is tremendous needs, and all business does is solve problems. So if you see a problem in your community, that's a business opportunity. It may not be yours, but take a look for some people who can actually solve that problem. Because, just particularly with the African American community, if we spend $1.3 trillion, we have resources to pay for problems being solved. And so there's an opportunity for us to be able to work together to build wealth.
So I've actually got a question. In terms of legacy wealth building, just in numbers, what would you say is because people talk about this, the power of the dollar, right? In the Black community, what would you say is the power of the dollar in the Black community?
Yeah, so let's start with the dollar period. So when we earn the dollar inside of our community, we're more likely to spend the dollar inside of our community. And so I would encourage people to recognize that conscious consumption, not unconscious consumption, but conscious consumption can serve as an investment in our businesses. So when we think about what do we do with our dollars, and think about how far our dollars go in a closed loop economic circle. What I mean is that when you purchase from a business in your community, that business is able to hire more people. Those people and then could in turn own more in that community. America has, it's almost like a four-trick pony. It's property tax, income tax, sales tax, and estate tax. And so the more that we participate in the economy of our community, our city, and our nation, the elevated standard of business happens in our community. And so your dollar, I want you to think about it. It's not just something you spend. Actually, if you consciously spend it, it can be an investment. And so that means you earning even more money converts you in the ability to become a greater investor in the future of our company, meaning the community business. So there's so many connections. That's why I love business, I love finance, and I love strategy that connects it, because we're all in this together. So just to wrap up, because I definitely want Nichelle Noble's song to play, but just to wrap up, Dave, I mean, the importance of getting in on the road to this opportunity. Workforce development helps you get into the game, earn increasing levels of income, and then participate, whether it's as an employee of a company or an owner of a company, but continue to build business. And once you have that business, look for ways to do well in your community, but also do well in the broader industry by finding ways to do business with larger businesses. And then lastly, don't forget to pass your torch while it's still lit. Think about succession. Right. Think about how you transfer those experiences to generations that are coming up behind you, so that we can continue to make sure that wealth builds, grows, and expands in our community.
See, that's why we're friends. Because I was gonna take that same bow and wrap the whole thing up. Right. Because I'm thinking, okay, I need you guys to understand. I want the audience to understand why we're having this conversation and how this ties back into the future of work and workforce development, all those things, because all of those things that you just said. And so, like you said, we definitely want want you guys to hear Nichelle Noble. No. So, and just to know that she's a young lady. She's 12 years old. She's in the AMP program. She's just finishing up an album. This is some of the songs you'll hear are some original songs. I think three out of the 4 songs she's doing original songs that she wrote herself. You're gonna love this. If we can just go, I don't know if we're doing the Q&A first and then the video. Can somebody help me with that? If not, we can go straight into the video.
Sure. Let's start with the video. just because we are tight on time. It is just one song today, but it should be fantastic. Give me just a moment. I'll get it queued up.
All right, thanks, Josh.
Perfect.
But yeah, that's that. Yeah, you wrapped that up nicely. Thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure working alongside you, Dave. I mean, I'm so excited about all the things that you're doing and all the things that we get to do together.
You don't need a gun to be strong. You can be strong in your heart, strong in your mind. Most of all, you can be strong inside. You don't need a fight to prove you're brave. You can be brave in your heart, brave in your mind. Most of all, you can be brave inside. I know this world makes you feel like you're a joke. And I know this world makes you feel like you're nothing. But please don't, please take it out on the trigger. But please don't, please take it out on the trigger. 'Cause today this world is not okay. All this violence, it could be better. So many people are crying, so much more are dying. 'Cause guns don't kill, people kill. You don't need a gun to be strong. You can be strong in your heart, strong in your mind. Most of all, you can be strong inside. You don't need a fight to prove you're brave. You can be brave in your heart, brave in your mind. Most of all, you can be brave inside. I know this world makes you feel like you're a joke. And I know this world makes you feel like you're nothing. But please don't, please take it out on the trigger. But please don't, please take it out on the trigger. 'Cause today this world is not okay. Oh, this violence, it could be better. So many people are crying, so much more are dying. 'Cause guns don't kill, people kill.
Beautiful.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. Well, I don't know, Josh, do we have time for questions?
So our next keynote has started, but there are a few people still here in this call. I will share details so that for those of you who want to move on to the keynote, you're more than welcome to, but we can hang back if anybody does have any questions. Otherwise, we can wrap up here, but we'll give it a moment to see if we get any questions come through.
I just want to say thank you to everybody for participating and being a part of this. It was great fun, great conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Likewise.
All right. I think most people are popping off to head to the next session. So we can wrap it here. Thank you both so much. Wonderful, insightful conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Dr. Joly. I'll see you later.
All right. Take care.
All right, bro.